gear does not matter. I mean, that's what everybody says all the time. Gear doesn't matter. You don't need this camera. You don't need an FX30. You don't need a Panasonic S5. You don't need an FX3. You don't need an A7S3. You don't need a, any camera. You don't need anything. It doesn't matter. Just go out and shoot your film. But then why is everybody just talking about gear all the time? Like there's 20 trillion videos here on YouTube about camera gear. For filmmaking, for photography, there's a billion videos. So what does that mean? Gear doesn't matter. Well, gear really doesn't matter if you're talking about just getting something done. Like you don't have to have anything other than what you probably have right now, which is your phone. You don't really have to have anything else to get something done. You don't. And I'm a perfect example of that. And so I'm going to explain the way that I did my film, the way I shot this all by myself with no help. Nobody was ever around during any of the shots except for one, where a friend of mine came just to make sure I wouldn't get hit by a car because I was laying in the middle of Park Avenue in Manhattan and, traffic. So I'm going to explain to you that in 2020, I was supposed to open a play at the Signature Theater in Manhattan. And obviously got canceled. And I had worked on that play for almost 3 years. And I mean, it was a lot of development. I had some amazing collaborators. It was a big production. It was a big deal for me. And so when it was canceled, I was kind of broken. You know what I mean? Like I was so depressed. It was, I was like, what do I do with my life now? This was my entire life. I had done nothing else for all that time. And so I decided to make a movie out of the same story. Which was kind of crazy of me because I had no idea how to make a film or a movie, or I had never even owned a camera of my own in my whole life. I mean, I had no interest in photography or filmmaking or anything like that. But I was very interested in the process of filmmaking, of making any kind of art. Creating a story is something that I'm just obsessed with. It consumes me every single day in my life. And so I said, you know what? I happen to know that the LG V40, and the reason I know this is because I did research because I used to love to record myself rehearsing because I always shared my process, my theater work. So I knew that the LG V40 was by far the best smartphone for filming. Now, a lot of people think that's the iPhone, but the LG had all the manual controls of a camera. And it also shot 4K. It went up to 240, so I could shoot slow motion in 1080. It was an amazing camera, just amazing. And so I started on my journey of going to like YouTube University and studying with all of these great YouTubers, all these amazing filmmakers that I learned so much from, And actually the video that I saw that inspired me to think, you know what, maybe I could do this, was Parker Walbeck did a video comparing the LG V30 to a RED camera, and he shot a scene from a film. I think it was the Walter Mitty's film, and it was amazing. Like the LG V30 kind of stood up, held up to the RED camera, and it just made me realize like gear doesn't matter. And I'll get back to that too, because I think that gear actually does matter, but it's more of a spiritual thing than a necessity to actually make a film. And I know that for a fact because I did it. So what did I do? I took my LG V40 and I got on YouTube and I learned about aperture, white balance, ISO, framing. I learned about everything, depth of field. I learned what an ND filter was, and actually a variable ND filter was the only thing that I added to my phone. Like I didn't have any kind of, adapted lenses or anything. I didn't use cranes. Like Steven Soderbergh has shot major films on an iPhone, but he adapted like millions of dollars worth of equipment to make those films. And so to me, that doesn't even count. You know what I mean? Like, so he replaced the camera with the phone, but he was still using, like millions of dollars worth of stuff and an entire crew. And, he had the whole complimentary package to make a movie. I was all by myself with my phone. That was it. And my story. And New York City, which I was lucky because I had the greatest location. Maybe I was fortunate that it was the pandemic because there were kind of less people out and about. Although I almost did get my phone stolen quite a few times. And that's a whole other story for another video. But what I did was I went out and I started to learn all this stuff. Then I went out and I practiced, and for the first, I would say 2 or 3 months, I was shooting from my theatrical script. And I'm telling you, for the first 3 months, I hated everything that I did. Like, it was terrible. It was like, I had already created a performance video, which, you know, my friend David Diaz, who's an amazing filmmaker, he helped me to make a mini-series of a play that I did for 5 years called Brooklyn Quartet. And we turned it into a 4-part mini-series. And, you know, I hoped to make like an HBO-style mini-series, but it really became more of a performance video. Like I just performed in different places and we chopped it all together. And it's amazing. Like, I'm proud of it. But it wasn't really what I had hoped for. And it was mainly my fault because I was guiding the process with a strong hand, and he just basically gave me whatever I wanted. But the problem was I had no idea what I really wanted. You know, not really, because I hadn't studied at YouTube University yet. So anyway, I started studying, and I started shooting from my theatrical script, like I said, and it was terrible. You know, it was bad. So I realized that I had to let go of the play, because the more I learned, the more I realized that making a film really has nothing to do with creating a play. You know, taking a theatrical script, workshopping it, getting it up on its feet, and finally getting to a stage and performing. Making a film is a much different story. And so I had to let go of this play that I had worked on for 3 years. And I mean, really let it go, like release all the words from my head. And mind you, The Red Plaid Suitcase, which was the name of the play, was 2.5 hours long. And I'm a solo theater artist. I'm the only one on stage. And so I had memorized 2.5 hours worth of words, and I had to let that go. And so I went through this like incredible mourning process. And I mean, literally, I mourned the loss of this play that I was never going to get to do, probably, because unless somebody pays me like enough money to take care of my life for a year, I'm not going to go back into that process and start doing that again. You know, I had to let it go. I was on to a different place. And so I let go of the script at the same time, and I started to write a proper screenplay, which I also had to learn how to do because I had never done that either. And slowly but surely, I started to shoot from a different script. The story changed. It was based on the same story, but it became a very different story as I evolved into this process. And it became the most amazing experience of my life. And I started to really like what I was shooting. And then I started to really get into it. And then I started to really deep dive, you know, these filmmaking tutorials that people leave online. And I started to study directors. I got into the whole thing of lenses, you know, this lens journey, which became a very spiritual thing for me. But I couldn't really apply it in this case because I was using my phone. And the LG V40 has what is probably equivalent to like a 27mm lens. But it's also kind of like a lens that you can get so close to your face, like a macro lens, that it had a lot of advantages. You know, like I could really, you know, get wide shots and I can get close-ups, and just using this one phone. It was amazing. So the more I learned, the more I continued to shoot, the deeper I got into it. I wound up reaching out to a friend of mine to do the score. It was amazing. I mean, if you watch the film, you'll feel like Ennio Morricone, you know, like scored the film. He was one of the greatest, you know, composers of all time. I mean, and Steve Peckman did that. Check him out. You know, it was just an astoundingly evolutionary experience for me, where I grew. I learned more in that 2-year process than I've ever learned in my whole life combined. But what I'm trying to tell you is that I didn't have any help. You know, I shot every single scene all by myself. And I mean, there are scenes where I'm 2 blocks away from the camera. I mean, certainly there are scenes where I'm holding the camera. I had to figure out how to hold the camera and so that you can't see it. I never broke the fourth wall. I never look into the camera during the film, so it looks like somebody else is shooting me. But I'm really far away. I got some incredible angles. And like I said, I hid the phone under, you know, like I put it under cars, like, you know, leaning up against the tires. I left the phone on a UPS truck once. I put the phone on the back of somebody's car who was parking their car so I could get some movement one time. I did some crazy things. Left the phone on the ledge of buildings, and, you know, I just I would frame the shot, look out and see what I wanted. I'd figure out a place to put the phone. I would look around to make sure nobody's around. I would kind of calculate how long it would take me to make this shot. And I would, put the phone down, get all my settings correct, get my ND filter right. I shot the whole thing 24 frames per second. And I would go and get the shot. And then I'd run back and get my phone. And like I said, it almost got stolen a few times. But I shot the entire thing by myself. And what happened? I finished a feature-length film, 2 hours and 7 minutes. And it is now an award-winning film. It's won at a bunch of festivals. First of all, we've been accepted to so many festivals, but it's won Best Indie Feature, Best Original Score, Best Actor in a Leading Role. Like, we've won so many awards, which blows my mind, because I shot it on my cell phone, by myself, with no help, except for my friend Audrey, who made sure I didn't die when I was laying in the middle of Park Avenue one day, getting a shot where I had to lay in the middle of the street. So that's the only time anybody was even there when I did any of the film. I shot the whole thing. I know I keep saying it, and it sounds like a broken record, but I'm saying it because you could do the same thing. You don't have to worry about gear at all. But I'm kind of a hypocrite now, because I've been doing all these videos about buying a Panasonic S5, or should I get the S5 or the FX30. I've been working with a Sony A6400 for the last year and a half, because after I shot everything in my film, I became really obsessed with filmmaking. And like I said, the whole thing about lenses and focal lengths and depth of field and the artistic and creative choices that you make with that part of the equation of filmmaking became something that I became really, really interested in. And so I bought the Sony A6400, and I got a bunch of APS-C lenses, and I just really started to experiment with that. And so that's when gear matters. Like, you don't need gear to finish a film. You don't need gear to be a YouTuber. You don't need gear to do anything. You just need your phone and some ingenuity. I bought 2 lights. I bought a tiny little Movo light, which cost me $9, I think. And I bought an RGB light, the size of a credit card, that cost me $60. Those were the only 2 lights I had. My budget for the film was $282, because I got my phone on eBay used, because I'm somebody who buys smartphones the next year after they come out. So I bought the LG V40 for, I think it cost me $190, and it was like brand new when I got it. So I spent no money on the film, I did wind up having to buy a computer, because believe it or not, the LG shoots H.265 files. And so when I got them into my computer, even though I shot in 1080, it was hard for me to really edit. And so I did wind up buying a desktop PC, and which I'm glad now, because now I'm working in 4K, and I do have a camera, and I am getting ready to buy a 10-bit 422 camera. And so I'm going to need the power that I have, and I'll probably even have to upgrade my RAM and maybe get a different video card. Maybe not, because I haven't had a hiccup at all, doing 4K footage. But, gear now for me is, I want to see what I can do with these other options, with the ability to change lenses, with better dynamic range, with better low light performance, with all the things that come with better technology. Like, you don't need gear to do a great project, but you do need gear to maximize your potential. I believe that. Like, I believe, and I mean all around, like, not to maximize your potential creatively as a storyteller, because here's the thing. I'm a solo theater artist, and what I love about being a solo theater artist is I can get on stage with no set, no lights, no nothing, just me and my body, and tell a story and compel an audience to look at me, just one guy on stage, for 2.5 hours. And I think I do it pretty successfully, because it's all about the story, it's all about the connection with the audience, it's looking into people's eyes. It's, I've performed for one person, and I've performed for 1,800 people. Like, it's always the same for me. It's all about connection. It's all about opening up this window to my soul and really, truly allowing people to get inside and see who I am. You know, even if it's a fictional story, I'm the vessel. I'm the one sharing this story, and I want people to know who I am. I want to be really intimate with it. It's the same thing with filmmaking. You know, it's just a different way of doing it. You know, it's like I'm still trying to do that through this lens. You know, I'm trying to do it right now. But now I'm really interested in the gear. You know, like I'm not spending crazy money. You know, I don't like, that's why I got the Panasonic S5, because I feel like I got a camera that is on par in many, many ways with the Sony A7S3, which happens to be more than twice the price of the camera that I'm going to get tomorrow via UPS, which I'm really excited about. I mean, it's like I want to see what I can do with all that I'm learning all the time, which I can't do with my phone. Doesn't mean that I can't tell as great a story. It doesn't mean that I can't even tell the story as well. It's for me. It's for me. It's like I want to push the envelope to see if I can get a better image, if I can get, you know, be a better filmmaker. But it's not gonna change my storytelling. Or actually, you know what? I shouldn't say that. Maybe it will change my storytelling, because maybe as I add this technology and this gear and all this stuff to my life, maybe it will open my mind even more. Maybe it'll, you know, open up more possibilities, you know, and I'm all about that. Like, change is good, you know what I mean? Like, it's so good to continue to evolve, to continue to progress, to continue to look for more, you know, to kind of reach for higher heights, you know, to try to find better ways to tell stories, you know, more interesting ways. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But I guess the difference between me and a lot of people is you could take all this away from me, and I could still go out on the street and do a play and probably have a bunch of people start coming over, because one by one people are going to start coming, which is what used to happen when I would rehearse in the street. And suddenly I would have an audience of 100, 200, 300 people in Central Park or in Brooklyn or in Asbury Park, New Jersey, or in Regent's Park in London. I have done that all over the world. Storytelling is key, and storytelling is organic, and it comes from your body, it comes from you. But I'm not mad at all this equipment either. You know, I think it's a beautiful way to express yourself. You know, I think it's amazing. And I don't think anybody should be judged at, you know, the quality of their technical filmmaking, because you never know where somebody is in their process. You know, I'm sure a lot of cinematographers might look at my film and go, you know, it's like he didn't have his ISO settings correct, or there's too much noise in that shot, or whatever. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter, because first of all, the sound quality was excellent, because I come from a pro audio background too. I was in the music business for a long time. So I knew that the most important thing in that film was to make sure that the audio was correct, because I was new at making the film part. But a lot of people think it's good. I'm so proud of it. I love it. I love it. I make no apologies for it at all. But I do know now that I know, you know, knowing what I know now compared to what I knew then, I'm like, wow, I could have done a lot of that better. And you know what? Maybe I did such a great job on that film because I didn't know. I didn't know about any limitations. I didn't feel like I had to follow any rules because I didn't know any of the rules yet. You know, I learned them on the fly. And I wasn't going back and reshooting stuff. Like, everything in that film is shot once. I didn't go back and reshoot anything because I wanted that film to document where I was at that time in my life. And again, I'm so proud of it, you know. And I know I'm never going to make my first film ever again. And now I'm already working on my second film, but this time I'm working with cameras. And it's going to be a lot different. And I'm going to shoot most of it by myself, but I'm also going to call in some people to help me with some shots because I feel a bit more ambitious now with what I want to do. And so, anyway, I say all of this to say, gear does not matter to just tell a story, to create a great story, to engage with an audience, to connect, to move people, you know, to inspire people. Gear doesn't matter at all. But gear matters a lot when it comes to possibilities, you know. Gear matters. Like, if you want to explore the craft, it's like another craft, you know. I mean, photography involves cameras. So if you're going to be a photographer, if you're going to be a videographer, if you're going to be a filmmaker, if you're going to be whatever, you want to explore all the possibilities. Now, if that stops at a smartphone for you, that's fine. You know, I'm quite sure plenty of people have shot much better footage than I shot on their smartphones because they know so much more than me. And maybe they're satisfied with that. But like I said, the big thing for me was the lenses. You know, like I'm way into vintage lenses. I found some old lenses that my father used that, you know, my father's passed away. And so I feel this like weird connection with him because I'm working with his lenses. I love manual lenses. I love to use manual focus. I love to manually, you know, be involved with every shot. You know, it's like I prefer to drive a clutch than an automatic, even though I have an automatic now, but I've driven a clutch most of my life. And it's because I feel more a part of the process of driving. And I feel the same way with making film, you know, like I really enjoy manually focusing, manually controlling the aperture. Like I enjoy that, you know, not to say that autofocus is not a great thing. And, you know, using autofocus like in a situation like this where I'm just talking to the camera is cool and it's convenient, you know, but, you know, to me, autofocus is simply a convenience, you know, and there's certainly something to be said about convenience because, you know, I've been somebody who has pretty much chosen the hard road for everything I've ever done in my life. I don't know why, but I always choose the one that's like the biggest challenge. Like, I don't know, maybe because I'm adopted, I feel like I have to prove something, or I'm trying to get some kind of, you know, feedback, or I have no idea what the reason is, but at this stage of my life, I'm trying to find more easy in this existence of mine. And so I embrace autofocus, certainly. And I know that the Panasonic S5 does not have the autofocus that Sony cameras have, but it's still good. You know, it's good enough for what I'm going to use it for. And so anyway, yeah, gear doesn't matter. Yeah, gear matters a lot. Both. So whether you're going to get the FX30, the Sony FX30, if you're going to get the Panasonic S5, if you're going to get the S1H, the S1, if you get the GH6, if you're working micro four thirds or APS-C, or if you're using full frame, whatever, FX3, A7S3, it matters. It's really important. It's beautiful to explore and to journey upon all of this gear and all that it can do, and how it's like, you know, continually progressing and getting better and better and better as time moves on. But just don't forget that the story doesn't need anything. The story just needs you. As long as you're alive, as long as you are able and willing to share a story, that's all you need. So gear should not stop you from shooting a short film, a full-length feature film, a YouTube video, a poetry video, a music video, whatever. Gear should not stop you if you have a cell phone. And by the way, if you don't have any phone and you just want to share stories, go to any club, go to an open mic, get up on stage and share your story. It might be the greatest experience you've ever had in your life. I know for me, getting on stage for the first time and sharing a story changed my life. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, gear, and how, no, I'm not a hypocrite. Of course gear matters to me. I can't wait to get this new camera, but gear had nothing to do with me being able to shoot a full-length feature film. That is something that you could watch if you want, and I would love it if you would do that. Go to thecenterofdistance.com. You could see it on Vimeo on demand right now. That would make me so happy, and maybe it'll inspire you to go, damn, that dude shot that with a phone? By himself? With nobody else around? Really?